Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Father.
Today, I find it no coincidence the wisdom that God gives us. In the Orthros service, in the matins that we heard today from the gospel, in the midst of chaos, Christ appears to his disciples and says, "Peace be unto you." And I will share with you, I come with that same message. The world seems like it's completely shutting down. And I'll share with you for a good reason. What doctors and so on are saying in countries that this has been impacted, the coronavirus has impacted many different countries, from China to Italy, and it's still there. We are behind, let's say, Italy by 10 days. So there's more to come. Now, this isn't to instill fear of any way, shape, or form, but this is to establish a reality of how our church responds to the world. While the mysteries, Holy Communion, for example, and the sacraments are not of the world, they're in the world. They exist. We are human beings. We have our work. We have our church. We have our fellowship. We have our ministries. And there's a line that's essentially drawn in times like these. And we, as you learned, have had a series of different updates of here at Annunciation Church. And you'll see, if you notice, maybe when you came in, you see some signage now. Because some things are little by little, the more that we know, the more we have to also adapt and to change. Not in who we are at the core as a Eucharistic church, but more so of how we handle ourselves as a family. So you'll see, for example, there's a reason why I stopped at this moment. Usually, after this, I ask us to love one another so that in one mind we may confess, and we exchange a kiss of peace. That is a tradition here at Annunciation and some other churches. That is going to end. Not because we don't love one another, not because we don't want to exchange the kiss of peace, but because on a very simple note, it's possible to be transmitted. That's something that is, while we're in the world, it's not something that isn't of the world. That is something that we are embracing one another. Now, some of us are willing to take that risk, and that's fine. Who am I to stop you? I'm telling you it's a good idea, but you have your own free will. And my preference, if you're going to ask me, is for it to stop. Because, as you know, the virus itself, while it does affect all ages, it predominantly affects our older community. And I'm not calling people old. Don't take that out of this, all right? But even myself, as someone who's seen as younger, can still be able to transmit it to somebody. Now, that's a part of the reality. There's certain numbers that you hear that will instill fear, transmission rates and mortality rates and so on. And they're there because they're given us as estimates, not to instill fear, to give us a picture of reality. So some people are saying that this virus has a 20 to 30% transmission rate, meaning that it is going to infect 20 to 30% of the US population. That seems like a very large number when you think of 328 million, just about, people that live in the United States. 20 to 30% of that is going to receive this virus through the transmission. There's a big if we don't take the precautions necessary to do this. So that's why you started seeing things shutting down. You started seeing things becoming trending of flatten the curve, getting people to make differences in their lifestyles so that they don't touch as many things. They don't touch their faces. They use basic hygiene. I don't know why they weren't doing that beforehand, but they need to be doing it now, I guess. You know, I know toilet paper's gone, but people were using toilet paper before this too. But things like that. Some people go into chaos. And the message the church gives us, outside of all of these things, is peace be unto you this morning. In the gospel that you heard earlier, we hear of the paralytic. We hear of friends of this paralyzed man going to great lengths to be before Christ. It seems like today we have gone to great lengths. As you can see, the pews aren't really full. That's fine. That doesn't discount anything of the world. Please, stay home. The church is saying, and the archdiocese, the archbishop, and the entire synod has said, if you want to stay home, it is not of a sinful nature, but it is out of love and compassion for the entire community. It's obviously not our intention to transmit diseases. Like, we're not bioterrorists. We're faithful who want to come to church. The church is going to stay open until told otherwise. So as you see, Holy Communion will stay the same until told otherwise. Other areas, as I'm sure some of you who are on social media have seen, have completely shut down. That's not because of their faith being lesser than anyone else. It's because they have a different response given to them by the local authorities. For example, the metropolis of Chicago is completely shut down to churches for the foreseeable future. Well, they're a big metropolitan city. They have many of their churches centralized in one location, and there is an actual risk. Not because of communion, not because of the divine liturgy, but in simply the fellowship that exists back and forth. So it's not because they have lesser faith, because you'll see this, guys. People are people. They're going to start claiming a hierarchy of those who have faith. Those who are more faithful will come to church. Those who are less faithful won't. No, if you're sick, please stay home. For the love of God, literally, stay home. For the love of our people and the love of our families, stay home. If you feel uneasy, go for it. The church is giving you this opportunity, not forever. Eventually, we have to come back. But in this time, the church is saying, it's okay. You're doing it out of love. If you're doing it out of that, if you're doing it because you're lazy and you don't want to come to church, that's a different story. That's why I said eventually you have to come back. Now, we haven't been given any of those things like shut down or this or that, but what we have been told is to scale some things back. Ways that if we can limit the touching of things. So, for example, the kiss of peace is one of those things. At the end of liturgy, before then, what you'll see before then, we're no longer going to be passing trays in the sanctuary. Now that is right now for the foreseeable future. So if you were expecting to put money into the tray again, please go ahead and put the money in the tray. I'm not going to stop you, but the tray is going to be in the narthex, and it's going to stay in the narthex. So when you come in and you buy a candle or you put your stewardship in there, however you do your daily routine, your Sunday routine, please continue it. Because here's the reality also. Not to say that this is about money, but in times like this, people hoard, as you see with toilet paper and cleaning supplies. Like they never had Lysol in their house ever before this. Like, the people do that with money as well. But the reality is businesses, small businesses, churches, businesses alike, whether even large corporations, are completely melting down. They're trying to figure out how this is going to look like. The financial landscape is going to look like. It affects people. It affects our family. So I'm not saying go out and do all these things, but what I'm saying is if you feel so moved, know that if you are going to give, that it stays into the narthex with your own hands, and there's also disinfectants back there, there's Lysol wipes, there's Purell, and so on. At the end of liturgy, people it's going to be confusing, right? The church was once told, have everyone put their hand into the Andidoron bowl and then exit. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Every single person's going to touch the Andidoron bowl. We're trying to not touch people. And so everyone's going to go put their hand in the cookie jar? No. So what's going to happen, and what has been suggested to me, is a little bit different. So I will actually still be giving out Andidoron at the end of liturgy. However, I will quite literally grasp the top of it. So imagine like this being a thick piece of Andidoron. I will grasp the top of it and I will place it into your open hand. Do not grab my hand. If you do, I'm going to hand it to my nifty pocket, one of many, and I'm going to bust out my little Purell. This is worth $5,000, by the way, if you're interested. All right? But I will wash my hands. And it's okay. Out of habit, we kiss the priest's hand. That's fine, right? I'm not going to call you a bioterrorist. It's going to be okay. I'm going to wash my hands. All joking aside, we have to take this seriously together as a family. So that's why we make a little bit of adjustments. We do what we need to do to limit our exposure to each other, not because we don't love one another, but because we have to. Because we, again, as the sacraments are not of the world, they're in the world. And we, as its human beings, as its faithful, are in the world. So we have to think, what can we do to help our family? That's why you even saw a whole security plan in place before this, not because of this, but we as a parish council have been setting up ways to create a higher level of security, not because we're worried about any threats or any of that, but because we love our faithful. We want to make everyone secure. I, as your priest, you literally call me Father Samson. It really is a father-like relationship. And I look to you all, as I've said to many people, as family, because we really are a family. Now, I might not be your father in a sense of that way, but when I look out in the pews here, I see people who are younger than me. I see you as my children. There's people who are the same age as me. You're my brothers and sisters. I see people who are older than me at different levels. The ones that are a little bit younger, of that elderly age, I see you as my parents. I see you as my grandparents. It's a beautiful relationship that exists. And we do what we can as a family and as fathers, most importantly, to protect our family. And that means, one, sharing the true faith, meaning that you cannot get sick from Holy Communion. It does not transmit diseases like that. Even though it seems very much so like it, it doesn't work that way. That's not how God works. Our brothers and sisters in other denominations, they believe it is a symbolic gesture. That the bread is symbolic of the body of Christ. That the wine is the blood of Christ. That is just symbolic of it. But in the Orthodox faith, we believe it is. That it truly is the body and blood of Christ. Not like flesh. Not like we're not biting. We're not cannibalists. But people throughout history have thought we were cannibalists. That's why I don't say things that people haven't said before. I'm sharing with you things that you might experience so that you can explain to people as Orthodox Christians what we believe. We won't change how we receive communion unless told to otherwise by our bishops, as we are obedient to them. But we can do everything in our power otherwise. That's why you see Lysol wipes on the mantles over here. That's why you see disinfectants all over the place. We wipe down the pews. All the icons have been wiped down. If you choose to venerate them, that's on you. If you choose to wipe it down, venerate it, and then wipe it again, by all means, go for it. Or you can just bow down respectfully and stay your distance. That's also fine. These are ways that we change, not because of who we are, but because, for example, the men you heard in today's gospel reading, they tried going into this house where Christ was, and the front doors were jam-packed. They had to find a different way to do what they were called to do, and that was to bring their friend towards Christ, to themselves bring themselves closer to Christ. We might have to make different ways about doing it. In their case, they literally opened up the roof and dropped their paralyzed friend in. So don't drop someone through the roof. Disclaimer, we're not liable for that as the Annunciation Church. But we have to find different ways in the world that is given to us to bring ourselves closer to God. So with that being said, there are going to be some limitations brought before us. So tomorrow and moving forward every Monday thereafter, we have Compline. Complines will be canceled moving forward. All right? We will find another way to do them, whether that be virtual, doing through a live stream. We're looking as a parish council to possibly purchase a live stream system. So that is something that is going to come in this foreseeable future that we have. Because this isn't just a 1-2 week thing. It's not a hurricane. It doesn't just come and then it goes. This is going to have lasting impacts. So that moving forward, we will keep pre-sanctified liturgy, same time, same place. We will keep the salutations to the Theotokos, same time, same place. However, the meal afterwards will no longer happen. All right? The Lenten lecture series, unfortunately, as much as I love them, in my good faith as the father, as the shepherd of this community, and then from the recommendations of our shepherds of the metropolis and the archdiocese, we have to limit our exposure. So, Friday night lecture series will not happen. I'll let you have your coffee today. But moving forward, there'll be no coffee hours. Some people that may make me very mad. Go get coffee wherever you feel like. It's just not happening here. All right? Just a reality. These are things that for the foreseeable future we have to do to limit our exposure. And I know it seems ridiculous. It does. But I'm telling you, every little thing works. Because while I spoke about how ridiculous that transmission rate sounds like, there's a mortality rate. And that mortality rate in all the other countries like China and Italy, Korea, and so on, where it's now becoming impacted, are hitting anywhere between 2 and 3%. All right? Yeah. We have about 200-300 people. In that model, that would mean we would lose statistics, that we would lose anywhere from 6 to 8 people of our community. I'm not willing to do that. As the father of this community, I am not willing to do that. So that is not in any way, none of this is to instill fear. It is to share with you that we have thought about this at length. We have prayed about this at length. And it is available to us to make these suggestions so that we can protect our parish family. I am going to actually at this time open it up for, I see someone with a raised hand. So if there are any questions, by all means, take this time.
I was going to ask, what are we doing about Sunday school?
Sunday school will be canceled. Today, we'll meet. Moving forward, we will not meet. That and any other type of ministry meetings will be withheld. Okay? It's just part of our reality moving forward. If there's things that we need to communicate, please, the office will be open, but that doesn't mean come into the office. Limit your exposure. All right? So call. Call me. I have a cell phone. That doesn't stop working. The virus can't infect my cell phone. So call me. That's not a problem at all. What, is there any other questions? Yes?
Are you going to have the presentation after salutation?
No. What I'm going to look to do is do that virtually. So maybe we'll post it onto the website. We'll put it on YouTube or something where we can watch it virtually. So I will still create the content, but I will give it to those who are interested. It's just part of our reality. Yes? Baptisms, cremations. Wonderful question. All the sacraments will still continue moving as forward. Now, depending on the situation and what moves, because I believe the next one is, I think, in the beginning of April. That will all happen as is, and we'll go from there. Hopefully, we'll have more information in the next 2 weeks. But right now, there are no restrictions when it comes to sacraments. I think, if anything, it would be a numbers thing, but our community isn't in a big metropolitan area where they're limiting like sized events. You know, like in Chicago and New York, they're limiting events. Anything over, I think, 250, can't meet at this point in time. Well, one day we'll get there, but we're not there. So there won't be that type of size of an event here at Annunciation Church. Yes? The memorial service will still happen. What we will have to do, and what other churches have done, is to take the Coliva from here to next door and allow people to pick it up. Okay. So, as a precaution, if you don't mind contacting them and letting them know about that, as you guys are the ones that are making the Coliva, and they might have set some stuff up to maybe have something next door. It's just, we're going to have to give it out and distribute it that way. So just pre-bag it or put it in cups of the saran wrap on top of it. That will be how we handle that. That's a very great question. Thank you. Any other questions? I really, in all seriousness, want to thank you all for your understanding in this matter. It is a difficult position to be in as someone who leads faithful, as bishops who lead entire regions. And they have to make these decisions. And that's why you see one area might do one thing, one area might do another thing, because that's been brought to my attention more than once. Every area has a level of risk. Bigger cities obviously mean bigger risk. So Chicago shuts down. Other areas, depending on what their amount of cases are as they grow, will make different arrangements. So right now, we've been blessed. I think the closest instance and case that exists is in Santa Rosa, which isn't too far, but guess what? No one lives over here. Everyone's 10-15 minutes out. So Santa Rosa is actually not too far either. So that's why I say we have to be smart and we have to be vigilant in these matters. We have to know that we have to become patient, right? Think of the men in today's gospel. They went to the front door. Completely packed full of people. It wasn't a wait a turn kind of crowd. It was, we're sandwiched in here like sardines. We need to find another way. They were patient. They figured out, well, how can we possibly get in? And of course, they went to the extreme measure of going through the roof. But they were patient. They understood God's will in their life. God doesn't just bring in viruses and things like that. It's not God's will. It's not meant to stop us from being faithful. We shouldn't lose hope. We shouldn't lose our faith. We shouldn't doubt. We shouldn't think about communion as a way to transmit diseases, because it doesn't work like that. But there are practical realities of being in the world that help transmit these diseases that we can do as faithful so that we can continue to have hope, that we can continue to have faith, continue to fight against the temptation of doubting. These are real aspects of our lives that we can do to help our brothers and sisters, to help our parish family. So I hope, again, that none of this causes any type of harm or creates hysteria. This is to literally bring us comfort and knowing that we as faithful have hope in the Lord, and that we believe that even through all of these struggles and trials, that God will give us the strength to overcome them. Just as he inspired and gave these men today that we heard in the gospel, he gives to us to overcome these obstacles that are brought before us. Again, no hysteria, meant to comfort to you all. And if there's anything sacramental, for example, just as we continue and we receive Holy Communion today, if there's people who are home who have decided that they're going to stay home for their health and for their own needs, by all means, I will come to your home. That doesn't stop me from coming to your home, where we can anoint people with unction, where we can bring them communion. That will not stop. Certain visitations that are non-life-threatening, those would have to stop. But right now, for the sacramental life of the church to continue, this is what we do. Because that's what we're here for, the sacramental life of the church. So hopefully this all brings you comfort and understanding, and I thank you for your understanding as we continue to do this and live and be able to still be faithful. Thank you, and may God bless you all.